All right. So I just want to welcome you all, uh, uh, Facebook audience. I just want to welcome you, and hmm, I just want to welcome you. Thank you for all of you guys taking your time out today. Oh man, we're going to be talking about spiritual fruit. So I pray that this is a blessing to you. Take the time out to listen to this message in its entirety. We got some great things in store. But we've already prayed in, so we're going to get started. First question is, why is it of the utmost importance that we bear good fruit? Why is it of the utmost importance that we bear good fruit? And this answer is coming from the book of Luke, chapter 3 and verse 9. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Every tree, therefore, which beareth not good fruit or bring it not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Okay, so there's a stern warning to all of us. We are the trees, and as we are in the Father's vineyard, we are the fruits of his. We're the trees rather of His vineyard. We are to be fruitful in this day. And as followers, right, of the Messiah, as believers or whatever we want to call ourselves, while we're walking this walk and living this life for Him, okay, we have to be fruitful. And so, what this means is fruit is produce. So the Spirit has to be producing things in our lives. We all understand in Galatians, we hear about the fruit of the Spirit being love and joy and peace, long suffering and meekness, etc. We hear about those, and we have to ask ourselves, okay, so are these type of things being manifest in our lives? Also, another version of fruit bearing is, are we being a faithful witness? Are we winning souls for the kingdom? And so these things we have to understand that as we are His and we're called by His name, we're blessed enough to know Him. While we're trees of His vineyard, okay, we must bear good fruit. And if we don't, there's a warning here. And I'm going to read, this is Luke 3 and 9. I'm going to read it once again. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Every tree which therefore bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. So today, what I want to do, I want to take a little time and just help us all not to focus on being hewn down, of course, or the axe being activated, but to take a little time to help us to understand, how do we bear this good fruit? How do we bear this good fruit? How do we bear that fruit that enables us our position, our steady position in the kingdom without being cut off? We see that there's been many that have been cut off. There's been many that were called of Elohim that have been cut off. Both when we read in the prophets and we read the time of Yahusha and also the time of the apostles, we see that there were those that were a part of the faith, but because they didn't bear fruit, they were cut off. Okay, well, all of us know about Judas. Judas was unfruitful, but Judas was also predestined. Okay, we read in the Old Testament, we read about Israel themselves, both Israel and Judah, and they were unfruitful and they were cut off. And so we don't want to put ourselves in such detriment situations. So, nonetheless, I'm going to read the book of Psalm, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1, all the way down to verse 3. And it reads, "Blessed is the man that walk not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of Yahuwah, and in his law does he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bring forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he does shall prosper." So we're talking about bearing fruit, but he gave us, some attributes that go along with that. Okay, so when we see this here, the first thing he said, and I'm going to deal with these one by one and give parallel verses. So the first one he said in Psalm 1 and 1, Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. So this is us not allowing our conduct to be fashioned by worldly and carnal standards and views. Okay, so our conduct shouldn't be fashioned by worldly and carnal standards and views. It just should not. This world can do and go the direction that it wants to go, but us as believers, if we want to be fruit bearers, if we want the Spirit to properly produce good fruit in our lives, then guess what? We can't be displaying the fruit of the world. We're going to have to display one or the other. We're going to be, and the fruit tells us what kind of tree we are. And Hamashiach told us, you know a tree by its fruit. Okay, so either we're going to be a good tree bringing forth good fruit, or we're going to be a bad tree bringing forth bad fruit. And we just read in Luke 3:9. Okay, that's going to deem us worthy of being cut down. Okay, so I just want to take a moment right there for everyone to kind of consider. What kind of fruit do I bear? Am I a open display? Is my life an open display of the Spirit producing things in my life? Like how do you handle your life when pressure comes upon you, when temptation comes upon you, when it's time to tell the truth or tell a lie? You see, are we tempted? The music's still playing. Are we tempted? Thank you, CC. But are we tempted? Okay, are we tempted to do wrong without even a secondary vice? Sometimes we just sitting up pondering on doing what's wrong. Is this us? See, and if that's us, then of course our conduct is fashioned by worldly and carnal standards and views, worldly or carnal standards and views. But that's not how we should live. Should, our conduct rather, should be strung up by spiritual production. In other words, we should live our lives as spiritual individuals and not of this world. Okay, so blessed is the man that walk not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of Yahuwah, and in his law does he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that bring forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he does shall prosper. Mute me for one moment. Let me know. All right, so okay. All right. So question number two. How should we regard fruitless discussions if we desire to bear fruit? If we desire to be spiritually fruitful, how should we regard fruitless discussion? And this world is full of fruitless discussion, okay? But I'm going to read 2 Timothy 2:16. He said, but shun profane and vain babbling. That's fruitless discussion. He said, shun it. In other words, turn a deaf ear to fruitless discussion. In other words, if the conversation is not edifying, if the conversation is not about building, if the conversation is not about the things of Elohim and how we should be better. In other words, those conversations about or promote us being worse off, or promote us right talking negative or speaking evil about somebody. Look, he said, shun profane and vain babbling. All those fruitful discussion, turn a deaf ear to those. He said, for they will increase unto more ungodliness. All they're going to do is produce more unrighteousness in our lives. And their word will eat as does a canker, of whom is Hymenius and Philetus, whom concerning the truth have erred, saying that the resurrection is past already. And so, in other words, okay, this vain babbling was produced in this context by way of false doctrine. Okay, turn your deaf ear to false doctrine, and also people talking about people, right? And all kind of people want to talk about vile, promiscuous things. Turn a deaf ear to those things. So, but this false doctrine that Hymenius and Philetus was about spreading. We understand, say they have erred from the truth, and talking about the resurrection and past already, and the Bible said that they overthrew the faith of some. So they subverted and completely destroyed the salvation of some folks. Okay. And so we have to understand, okay, these words, they can be detriment to our lives. So when we're living this life, and I know, everybody talks that way, everybody talks and use vain babbling, fruitless discussion is everywhere. Doesn't mean that we have to be partakers. Doesn't mean that we have to be a part of that. We don't have to indulge. And a lot of time people do what they do because we just silently consent with what they're doing. Well, we need to learn how to sometimes your stepping away or showing body language of not being want to be involved with that conversation. Sometimes that speaks enough. Sometimes that's the message that you have to send. Some of us are not bold enough to just tell a person, hey man, look, okay, well, there are other ways. Let your body language speak for you. Appear to be uncomfortable, right? But by all means, shun it. Don't allow yourself to continuously engage in fruitless discussion. Because why? Because you won't be fruitful. These things are hindrances, they're weights. They're holding us back from becoming fruitful because we don't understand that when we're around people that have this negative talk, okay, so what it does, it produces negativity in our lives. And if we want to be positive, we can't have those things. We can't indulge in those conversations. I would prefer that the person or people that are, contrary in this way, that we actually help them, that we're able to have those hard discussions, to help them to understand, to overcome. We all about overcoming and help someone else overcome. We want to, help other people to overcome in this life the things that we don't want to just walk away, okay, I'm right and they're wrong. Now we want to be able to help them to overcome and be right as well. So we're talking about being spiritually fruitful, and even some of the stuff we're watching on TV, even some of the songs, the songs, it's a fruitless discussion. It's a man, what is he rapping about? What is she singing about? The Bible says shun profane. How many songs are profane? How many movies that we watch are profane? Think about it, saints. You know, and we are what we eat. So, we have to be really careful about what we're feeding into our souls, what we're allowing access into our hearts. And we already, most of us, we already don't read that word enough. We already don't pour into our lives the spiritual things that we need to grow and to become more spiritual. But on top of that, we're pouring all kind of pollution, all kind of profane things. We indulging in all kind of vain babbling, fruitless discussion. He said they will increase unto more ungodliness. They're only going to produce more unrighteousness for us and for everybody else. Shun them, saints. All right, question 3. How should we regard the mouth of any vain talker if we desire to be fruitful? Now, this is Titus 1 and 9. Holding fast the faithful word as he had been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. For there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of circumcision, whose mouths must be stopped. So, how should we regard the mouth of any vain talker? If we desire to be fruitful, that's our mentality. His mouth must be stopped, right? Mouth must be stopped. Say they subvert whole houses. Is what the scripture said, verse 11. They subvert whole houses, teaching things that they ought not. Why? For filthy lucre's sake. How many of these people out here, they're preaching all type of thing that they ought not? Why? For money. Subverting whole houses. Okay? So we don't get into vain talk. And one thing about vain talk, sometimes it sounds real good. Sometimes it sounds real good, sometimes it sounds real prolific, but if we're quote unquote speaking spiritual inspired and we're off, or we're in error, or we're spewing out lies, or just trying to make something sound good to get a following. Look, that's that stuff right there. A lot of people make stuff sound good to get a following. They sit up and learn how to talk and And I'm not saying all preachers that have that little vernacular is wrong. Hey man, what's up to you guys? But we know how to talk. Okay, all right. Talk regular, man. Talk regular, I ain't knocking you if you do it, man. I kind of like it, honestly. But some people use that and it's a part of their manipulation, okay? So we have to be discerning because we don't want to indulge in somebody's vain talk, okay? Our mentality, that mouth must be stopped. Because vain talk, it sounds smooth, sometimes it's smooth talk vain talk, right? And so many people listen to this, and this is why so many people consider themselves to be a Christian, but don't live as Christian because they listening to vain talk. So they got vain faith, they got vain salvation. It's all worthless. All right. Now I know that some of y'all might hear that like, what this man talking about? He's audacious. Listen, I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. So many people, we listen to so many vain talkers and it sound real good. And we got some of these vain talkers, thousands of members at their church talking vain. In other words, look, these words, the word that they speak is not going to get you to heaven. It's not going to get you saved. Okay. Saved means to be saved from sin. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. Somebody said, well, we all make mistakes. We do. But when do we stop willfully sinning? When do we have a conscience that won't allow us to do the wrong, or at least feel bad about the wrong that we've done? When is that established? Because that's going to be at the essence of salvation, conviction. All right. And faith means conviction, moral conviction of religious truth. So we're not even walking in faith. So when do we begin to walk in faith? All right. When do we begin to micromanage ourselves by the voice of the Holy Ghost to begin to do what's right? Or are we just allowing ourselves to be all that we want to be? Think about it. Like you think about it. Where do we stand? So a lot of times it's because of vain talk. It's because we're listening to empty words. And sometimes they sound really good. All right, so next I want to go back to Psalm 1 and 1. And I want to go to the next part of this verse. Blessed is the man that walk not in the counsel of the ungodly, but this I want to emphasize on, nor stand in the way of sinners. Now this is us not allowing ourselves to stand in a course of life that's offensive to Elohim. We don't want to ever stand in that place and allow ourselves to uh, be a part of what offenders, people that offend him, are doing. And we don't want to conduct ourselves in that pattern. We just don't. Because if we do, we'll never bear spiritual fruit. All right. Now, question number 4: how should we regard the path of the wicked if we desire to be fruitful? Proverbs 4 and 4. Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it. That means show unwillingness. Avoid it. Pass not by it. Don't even go by it. Don't go near it. Pass not by it. Turn from it and pass away. Listen, verse 16 says, for they sleep not, except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. You have this type of people in this life, and some of them are living false pretense of being Christians. They're there just to subvert your soul. So we want to be fruitful. All right, we want to be fruitful. So we don't enter into the path of the wicked. We show unwillingness when it comes down to it. Okay, and so this helps us to be fruitful. The word makes everything manifest, make the truth apparent, makes his word apparent. So the word become magnified, but also evil become magnified too. And so the more evil is magnified, the more I can understand what to stay away from. Because sometime in this life, I'm not as discerning as what I should be, and I don't quite understand good for me. All right. I don't. When we first come to Christ, and as we learn, this is why, it's some things that we could do at first, but we can't do now because why? Because we've grown. It's about growth. Okay. But the more we grow, the more this should be apparent. The more things this should be apparent with. Okay? Enter not into the path of wicked. Sometimes we stand in the path of wicked and we don't know it when we first come to Christ. You see? And so this is why we have to allow people time to grow, an opportunity to grow. We can't hold the same expectations of a first grader as we do for a sixth grader, right? There's certain things sixth grader know that a first grader don't know. It's the same concept in the church. So as we're operating, conducting ourselves in the church, we have to understand that when a person comes to the church, yeah, they're gonna stand in the way of sin. We all did. But the more the word, the more the light is manifest to us, rights and wrong, then we understand how to stay away from that path. And look, listen, we become fruitful. The Spirit is producing things in our life because as long as we're in that way, we're unfruitful. It's going to be a hindrance. There are certain conversations that you see when the conversation arises, we can't say the right thing because we kind of feel that it's right or we kind of agree with it, right? But fruitfulness is being combated, not necessarily aggressively, but it's being combated against those things even in a sympathetic or a compassionate way. Okay? You're going to disagree, whether you tell them or whether you don't tell them at the moment, whether you figure out how to tell them, pray about it, you're going to be combative against those things. Okay? So, but we have to show an unwillingness when it comes down to the path of the wicked. Next question. How should we regard the way of the wicked if we desire to be fruitful? Proverbs 4 and 19. The way of the wicked is as darkness. That means misfortune and gloominess. Yeah, that's what it is. And as glamorous as we try to make it, it's completely overrated. It's misfortune and it's gloominess. He said, the Bible also says, and this is Proverbs 4:19, they know not at what they stumble. See, when we come to church, this is all of us. We don't know what we're stumbling at. We're utterly unfruitful because the Spirit hasn't produced many things in our lives. So we don't know why we're faltering. We don't know why we're walking unsteadily. So we must get in that word. We must value that word. Wisdom is the principal thing, the cheapest thing, right? And so we must get in that and get for ourselves an understanding. Don't be like every other Christian. Just living this life, not educating yourself, not picking up your scriptures and reading. Don't be like everybody else. Don't be like that. That's my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Don't be like that. Pick up your word and read for yourself. You got a pastor, that's good. You got deacons and ministers at your church. Pick up your Bible and read for yourself. And I'm telling you, like, you're gonna thank yourself later because you're gonna see there's a lot of things that people feel that are right in this Christian world that they're really unfruitful. Why? Because they're unlearned. The light haven't made things manifest to them. We need that light to make things manifest that we know good from evil. All right. Now, uh, the next part of it, where it's back in Psalm 1 and 1, said, blessed is the man that walk not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners. This part we'll emphasize, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. So this is us not allowing ourselves to fellowship with mockers and scorners. Question 6. How should we regard scorners if we desire to be fruitful? Proverbs 22 and 10 says, cast out a scorner, and contention shall go out. Yea, strife and reproach shall cease. So when we read this verse, he said, cast that mocker out, that openly contentious or openly blasphemous, or one that's openly disrespectful. Get rid of that. First of all, if a person is willing to be openly disrespectful, then that should say a lot about that person. Okay. And so when that person is openly disrespectful, you got to understand that this is going to bring reproach. This is going to bring strife. Now, strife in this verse means false judgments. It's going to bring false judgments. Somebody's going to be confused. And you got to understand about people. When you got people that are openly disrespectful, you got to understand it doesn't matter how right you are. If somebody openly disrespects you, all the spectators going to look at you like you're wrong. They're going to feel like you gave that person a reason to treat you like that, whether you right or whether you wrong. And all those people was consenting to put our Savior on the cross. So a lot of people didn't have anything to do with it, was out there yelling Barabbas too. Why? Because by nature, If we see somebody being openly disrespected, then we automatically assume that the person deserves it and that they're wrong. But understand that's not always the case. And in church, we have to be especially careful because these type of individuals don't have a place in the church. Either they have to shape it up or they have to ship it out. All right. And I know that sounds hard. And so we have to be mindful. When we come to church, we are us. We are us, man. We are us. We bring all our baggage, all of our negative, evil ways, our trifling self. We come right through the door, right? We do. Okay, so understand when you hear this type of stuff, and somebody listening right now, they say, man, 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 Robert, that was me. I was that right there. I was the one. I was openly disrespectful. I had a problem with what the pastor was trying to say. The deacon, they tried to get me to put my not coming there. Even with my bubble gum, I had a problem. Like on some of the simplest things, they tell me to park over here. I say, forget it. I park where I want to. All kind of just problem. Somebody had a problem with me, and they were trying to calm me down. I wasn't trying to hear none of them. That's how we come to church. We are so wicked to the core. And so that's why the doors are open. We are like a spiritual hospital to help people to bear spiritual fruit, right? So when they come, when we came, I came, sure did. I came, I was a fool and a half. and I try to cover it up, right? But you would have caught me on Tuesday, you'd have said, oh, the rock cussing like, yeah, all of us. Don't be acting funny. Don't be acting like you above the law. Don't be acting like that. You was the same way too. Or if you wasn't, congrats, congrats, congrats. But anyway, listen, when we're living in this life, we got to understand that if we come to church and we're this way, we're subject to be cast out. We're instructed to cast you out. Okay, when he said cast out the scorner, that's a command, cast them out. But when you do it, contention shall go out with it. Contention, strife, all fighting and disputes gonna go out with you. Yea, strife, false judgment and reproach, confusion and dishonor shall cease. See, you can get one person up in the mix of any group and they're this way and it's gonna corrupt the whole group. Okay? So we have to understand that church, we can't afford that because the devil is gonna use that. He's gonna use that like a fine tooth comb and he's gonna systematically pluck up the respect that your leaders have. Anybody that need to be used. It don't matter if you're a choir director. It don't matter if you're a director of your usher staff. It don't matter if you're deacons. It don't matter if you're pastor, first lady. If you have this type of stuff in your church, it's going to systematically corrupt what you have going on. Always got a problem with something. Don't mind speaking up about your problem. I got a problem. I got a problem. Listen, understand, you may have a problem, but there's a way to handle this. Don't go crazy with the church leaders, okay? Respect them, all right? Show them respect. Respect them for their work's sake. Respect them because they have proven themselves. Respect them because they are worthy of your respect. So you come in, a lot of us come into church, we come straight out the hood or wherever. I don't know. To me, hood folk got more sense than that, but so I don't know where the folk come from, right? I'm from the hood. I know people from the hood. We respect church, right? We say, or if we can't, you know what we say? I ain't even finna play with God. I ain't going there. So I know how it go, right? But hey, I don't know where a lot of people come from to be openly disrespectful at church. We are to be respectable. We're to honor those in authority, right? That's how we do. We're not openly scornful because, look, and we have to understand that if we fellowship with these type of people, because he said, sit not in the seat of the scornful. Don't fellowship with these people. Don't fellowship and be all around people that openly mock and openly humiliate. Don't be around that because that is going to prevent you from becoming fruitful. Now, the frame of mind that you should be in to respect what's going on, respect the mission, and the teamwork, the effort that's going on. You got a problem with that because somebody didn't put that negativity in your ear. Listen, that's going to prevent us from being fruitful, church. Tell that person, hey, listen, I love you, baby, but I can't afford. My life is too valuable for me to sit up and enjoy this type of talk with you. You done went from talking about the pastor to talking about the first lady to talking about their kid to talking about their dog. What's really going on? What about you? Are you so perfect that you got to sit up and talk about everybody? Are you so perfect that you got to sit up and talk about Sister So and so like that? What have you said to Sister So and so to help Sister So and so? Okay. If you ain't told her, don't tell me. See, sometimes we just got to step up bold just like that. But a lot of times these type of people, they don't want to resolve. They just take pleasure in talking about people and being scornful. Cast them out. No, don't cast them out. Help. Scornful. If you're listening to this, we just want to help you. Receive the help. And I'm gonna tell you, like, man, life is so much better when we just learn how to get along. When we just learn how to, swallow our pride and understand. See, when we have an expectation that everything will always go our way, that's a problem because we're gonna be walking entitled and we're gonna be trying to hold people bound to that. But it's a falsehood. We out of touch with reality. Nothing's ever gonna always go our way. Life itself shows us that. Okay. So I hope hearing this will help us to understand. Don't expect people to always treat you right. Don't expect everything to always go according to how you feel it should go. Okay. And see, when you get rid of the expectation, going to help you to not be so disappointed about things. And it's that disappointment, right? And that bitterness that allows you to just say what you say and come out with it. And whatever's on my mind, I just say it. No, don't listen, don't live your life like that. Don't lose your job. Don't lose a good friend. Don't lose a church family, a good pastor or first lady. Don't lose your good relationship with the deacon. Don't do that. Don't do that. That deacon will do anything he can for you in that church or outside of that church. So, your car quit, he gonna try to be there for you. Look, don't throw away good people because you don't know how to act. Get that together. And we're here to help you. We're not here to judge you. Not here to think that we're better than you. I just said it. Oh no, don't cast them out, help them. We're here to help you. So look, just receive the help and love. Now, let's go on. Let's move on. Next question. What should we do as an alternative to being scornful if we desire to bear spiritual fruit? This is Jude 1:17. But beloved, remember ye the words which were spoken before the apostles of Yahushua Hamashiach. He said, how that they told you there shall be mockers in the last time who shall walk after their own ungodly lusts. These be they that separate themselves, sensual. They don't mind inflicting pain and suffering. They don't. They resemble beasts, showing a lack of human sensibility. Okay, that's what sensual means. Now, having not the spirit, the scriptures say, verse 20, but ye beloved, building up yourselves in the most holy faith. Okay, so we have. Listen, if we're doing this, we rejected the faith. We're living life as a scorner. We don't want to reject the faith, but we want to build up ourselves in the most holy faith. We're going to do the opposite as an alternative, right, of being scornful. We should build up ourselves in the faith. All right, we should build up ourselves in the. What's the faith? The faith is the belief system by which we stand. Conviction of the truth, the things that we read in the Bible, in the scriptures. So when we're reading the scriptures, and if we feel ourselves getting scornful, want to be openly disrespectful, want to mock, want to, then that's just simply saying we get in that word and attack those feelings to suppress those feelings. You see, and you get to the point. I want to say something. I'm gonna tell them. I'm gonna tell them. Well, I agree. You should tell them. I agree that you should say something. But the problem is being scornful. The problem is being openly disrespectful. There's nothing wrong with you saying something, ever. Please go talk to your pastor, your first, whoever. Go talk to them. They listen, hopefully. But the problem is not us saying something. The problem is us being disrespectful while we're doing it. Scornful. All right? So what this is telling us, if you got scornful people, don't fellowship with that while they're being scornful. Now you fellowship with them to help them to know, right? Say, listen, there's nothing wrong with you telling pastor if you got a problem. You should tell him. He probably love to hear from him. Tell him. If he said something, done something to offend you, he might not even know. At least I would hope he, didn't will just deliberately offend you. But you need to talk to him about it, get a resolve in y'all's relationship. You know, listen, I'm gonna tell y'all something, man. All type of friendships will receive help if we just had this mentality. We pointed people in the right direction, the right way. Hey, when you go in the spirit of meekness. Go with the mind of restoration. Don't go with a mind that, you don't care what the outcome. Matter of fact, I want the smoke. See, that's a scorner. But see, we should never go with that. We should go with the mentality of restoration. Go with the mentality of wanting to see the situation rectified. That's the spirit by which we should go. All right. And so when we think about this is an alternative. Build up yourself in the faith. Get with somebody that's going to help you to have a conviction, proper conviction level. Pray about this and get in the scripture for yourself that that the right way can be established, that you can understand that a soft answer turns away wrath. Even if somebody's scornful toward you and you're a scorner, soft answer turns away wrath. So you got to understand your soft answer that you want to interject when somebody even being scornful towards you. Okay. And that's why when you got scornful with somebody that was spiritual, that's why they gave you a soft answer. And I know a lot of people that's weak. Well, let nobody talk to me like that. Look, the light is yet making manifest in your life. When we're young in the faith, we're growing. Don't expect yourself to see, and it could cause a divide, right? It could cause a divide. So don't allow the way the spiritual saints feel and the way that I feel as an immature saint. Don't allow that to disrupt. See, we start thinking it's a divide. It brings a heresy into church. Okay, we start looking at they mindset mentality against ours. We should have a voice. We should be able to say. We should be able to do. We should. Well, you should. It's a way that you should do it. It's a way that you should say it. It's a way that you should speak your mind, and it's called order and it's called respect. We all grown, okay? So you can't treat the pastor like he's your child either. Right? Don't that make sense? You're gonna talk to him like you talk to your child. Pastor, no. Listen, all of that's not good and not valuable for the church. All right? None of it is. So as an alternative, look, we get up in that scripture, we get with some people that's got that faith in them, and we learn and we grow. You see, and our mindset is, man, I ain't never trying to be open to disrespect. If I got a problem, I want to handle it the right way. I want to go to somebody in the spirit of meekness. All right, now back to the foundational text, Psalm 1 and 2. And this is what we're emphasized on, but his delight is in the law of Yahuwah. Question number 8. How should we regard his will if we desire to bear spiritual fruit? How should we regard his will? This is Psalm 40 and 8. I delight in thy will, O Elohim. Yea, thy law is within my heart. So I delight, that means I incline to or have pleasure in to do his will. So we delight or take pleasure in doing his will. What is his will? His will is what is acceptable or pleasing to him, what he desires. So we delight in doing what he wants us to do. Okay? Say, yea, Elohim, your law is written within my heart. It's in the midst of my heart. And we have to understand the heart is a very unstable place at times. But see, this law being in the midst is a regulator and a stabilizer. In other words, listen, we'll be going contrary all the time if it wasn't for the law, if it wasn't for the scriptures. And this is why, see, if we want to bear fruit, Psalm 1 and 1, if we want to be like that tree planted by the rivers of water, then we're going to delight ourselves in the law. We're going to take pleasure in his law. All right? We got to keep that law in the midst of our hearts as a regulator and a stabilizer. Because without it, we're going to sin. We're going to fall. We're going to do what we want to do because it's too much temptation and pleasures out here. So that law is what prevents us from just indulging. All right? Now, I want to show you something else. Next question. To what magnitude is the fruit of love manifest because we keep his commandments? This is 1 John 2 and 3. And hereby we do know that we know him if we keep his commandment. Now, that's a powerful statement. I got to just stop. So in other words, we're not keeping his commandments. We don't even know him like we think we do. Okay. Now, that's not an indictment. I ain't saying, oh yeah, he just condemned me to hell. Oh no, no, I'm not condemning you to hell. It's not my place. But the scripture is here for us to have an understanding. Okay, so if I don't keep his commandments and I call myself a follower, that means I don't know him as I should. That means my relationship that I assume to have with him is not what I assume it to be. Okay. Verse 4. He that says, I know him and keeps not his commandments is a lie, and the truth is not in him. This is your Bible telling you this. So what we have to understand is, you see, it just means that I haven't grown to the level of relationship with him that I need to. And so understand when you first come to church, yeah, this applies to all of us. Yeah, we are straight sinners. We ain't keeping this commandment. We do what we want to do. We're here, because something compelled us or drew us, but when we're not anywhere near perfect or spiritually mature. So and at times it just is what it is. I am what I am, right? And so, but as we grow, we're not what we used to be. All things become new. Understand what I'm saying today. And so as I grow, hey, I began to study his word, and because I love him, I'm gonna do what his word says. Okay? Hereby we do know that we know him if we keep his commandments. See, my relationship with him begins to grow. All right? And I began to love him. I began to know him. I become more known of him, right? And so when we say this, when we read this, rather, verse 5 said, but whosoever keep his word, in him verily is what? The love of God perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. All right. So by keeping his commandment is ultimately, all right, to what magnitude is the fruit of love manifest because we keep his commandment? That love is listen, the magnitude that is going to be manifest is a perfect love. Okay. We display a perfect love for him, a perfect love for our neighbor when we keeping his commands. All right, when we're keeping his commandments. Start at the 10 and work your way from there. All right. So when we are saint, we know, okay, honor your father, your mother. When we're a saint, we know don't commit adultery. When we're a saint, right, we know don't put God before God. When we're a saint, we remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. When we're a saint, we don't murder. When we're a saint, we don't covet, right? We know these things. We know these things. So, but if we say that we know him and we're not doing these things, the scriptures itself call us a lie. Now, what attributes culminate the love of Elohim? This is 1 John 5 and 2. By this we know that we love the children of Elohim. Here it is. When we love Elohim and keep his commandments. It's not possible to love according to how Elohim said we should love if we're not keeping his commandments. Because if we can steal from a person, if we can covet what's theirs, yeah, we ain't got no love for them. He said, verse 3, for this is the love of Elohim, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. So we still, we are for ourselves, we are providing sacrilege worship, and for ourselves, we are bowing down to idols. And sometimes there's people that we idolize. If we're in this life, right, and we're being dishonorable in any way toward his commands, guess what? We don't love him. We don't love him. For this is the love of Elohim that we keep his commandments. That's how we love him. So sometimes, it's about uh, taking our mentality and placing it in the word. Because a lot of us, we define love differently. And that's where we falter. When we come to church, we define love differently. We define love in various expressions. We define love in various movements of life, various thoughts and emotions is how we define love. And so we bring that to church and we say, I love God. Everybody say, I love God, I love him. And we can even tear up with it. That's your affection. But you ever had a person tell you, and you was trying your best to love them, and they tell, I don't think that you love me. And you get confused, like, what? All I do is love you. All I do is show you good that I'm good to you. But see, everybody has a standard of love that you have to love them according to. And I hope this making sense. And if somebody ever failed you right here, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, 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 yeah. Because that person was assuming to themselves they was the best to me and they wasn't, right? So we have to understand when it come down to Elohim, he feel that way about us. Sometimes we feel like we the best to him. We feel like we're the best saint because we're the best singer or the best worshiper, or we give the most money and we pay the most tithes, and we all in the community helping out the little boys and the little girls who don't have food, and we just assume to ourselves, right? But when it comes to keeping his commandments, when it comes to doing what he says to do, so we don't do it. So in essence, we're picking and choosing what we want to do of the gospel and of this life, and neglecting what he will have us to do. See, it doesn't work like that. So when we do that, then he said, hey, you don't love me. Now, it's not an indictment against anybody. That's not a put down to anybody. It's just not. This is for us to be able to identify within ourselves where we stand. And if we see ourselves standing here, we can definitely stand elsewhere. We can be the one today to say, you know what, nah, man, I can't be living life and not showing God that I love him because I don't do what he says do. I want to show him that I love him by doing what he says do. Well, look, and it's just that simple. And don't let anybody tell you, oh, you can't do it, it's too hard. It don't take all that. It does take all that. It really does. The sooner we understand it, the better. It does take all that. So let's get this work done. Now, back to the foundational text, and this is Psalm 1 and 2. But his delight is in the law of Yahuwah. This is the part we emphasize. And in his law does he meditate day and night. So the word meditates means to take pleasure in, pondering, studying, and speaking. So we should take pleasure in pondering, taking time out to think about his word and applying it to various situations of life, applying it to various choices and decisions that we must make, applying it to how we treat particular everybody, but especially particular people, and namely, a person that I may have a problem with, a person that I might want to win, right? We have to meditate upon His Word day and night. Okay, and we have to understand, if we want roots of stability, if we want to be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, if we want to be fruitful, look, these things are things for success. A lot of time there's different thoughts that creep in our mind and they're not godly, but his word is godliness. So the more we focus on that, the greater chances are that we'll do what we're supposed to do. The spirit is able to produce in me and you what he wants to produce. We become fruitful. But the problem is a lot of time we're not meditating on his word. We don't apply it to our decision making. We don't apply it to how we treat people. We don't apply it. When we're sitting up and trying to get direction for our life, we don't apply it. So here, these are instructions to be fruitful. And in his law, he meditates day and night. Now, also in the foundational text, Psalm 1 and 3, and this is the part we'll emphasize, and he shall be like a tree planted by the river of water. All right. Now, this word planted is a strange word. It actually means transplanted, lifted and reset in another soil or situation. So, what Elohim does at times when we find ourselves in life, we was planted. I don't know where we were planted. Various treacherous territories. And it's not to say we ain't gonna find treacherous territories when we get saved, because hey, we see the thing that the apostles and our Messiah had to go through, right? It's just that when we're living in this life and we in the jungle, like they say, oh man, listen, sometimes the environment that we're in is not the best. Okay. And matter of fact, let me say matter of fact, all the time, the environment that we're in is not the best. And if we know what the word church means, it means called out. All the way back to Abraham, he was being called out. All right. And he was called, come out from among, right, your father's house. Okay. And so even when the prophecy says, out of Egypt I called my son. And so we see Jacob, Israel, that's why all his lineage had to go because he needed to be called out. Okay, this is why Yahushua, this is why the Messiah himself, when his daddy took him and fled to Egypt, it was no mistake. Out of Egypt, I have called my son. And so all of us, we have to be replanted in a territory. It's a spiritual significance is that we have to be replanted in a place that he wants us to be. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with where we come from, nothing to do with the past, the place we've grown up, etc. And not that you're going to physically leave those territories, those geographical zones. It's not that. It's just that your life is now planted in a different vineyard, and you're expected to live a different way. You're expected to live a certain way now, because now where you stand is in a place of you being delivered, so that His word could do and prevail in your life. Okay, so that you can be recreated in His image. All right, and so when we think about that, if He called us out of the world, it don't mean that we're gonna be transposed to another planet. Hey, it just means that now I don't stand where they stand. I don't do what they do. And true enough, I may walk the same block, but I gotta consider my feet planted elsewhere. Now we're planted in the vineyard of the master. Okay, and in this vineyard, there's expectations, and I read it from the beginning, all the way when we started out in Luke. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is hewn down and cast to the fire. If we're in His vineyard, so as we're here, we got to conduct ourselves accordingly. So plant or planet means to transplant, lift, and reset in another soil or situation. And plant is fix or set securely or deeply. So this is what he does for us. He affixes us. He securely sets us. We're deeply rooted, okay, when we're called. And so we have to understand that when we're deeply rooted, root provide nourishment. If there is no root, there is no nourishment. So we're talking about bearing fruit. So as long as we are planted in his vineyard, he's going to expect something because he know what this soil produces. And if we don't, he's going to consider us a dud. That's why we get cut down. Notice, all of the things that we just talked about are reasons why we hinder ourselves, or reasons why we're dud, or reasons why we're a bad tree and can't produce good fruit. Because think about it. How many of us stand in the seat of the scornful? How many of us, think about it, don't meditate on his word day and night? How many of us don't delight in doing his law? How many of us, think about it, we standing in the way of sinners? How many of us? We've been called. We've been called out. We've been called out. Think about it. How many of us, and we call ourselves Christians? But yet these are the things this is the way we're conducting ourselves in this life. Listen, as long as we're doing this, we can never be as fruitful as what we need to be. And so when we read Luke 3 and 9, and I'm gonna read it again. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Every tree, therefore, which bringeth not forth good fruit, is hewn down and cast into the fire. I pray this be none of us, but I pray that we become spiritually fruitful as we have been called to do. That's my message. I love you. Y'all stay blessed.